What do you think you're seeing right now? Letters on a screen? A video on YouTube? Do you believe you are here because you chose to be?
Let me tell you something you might not want to hear. All of this is a theater. Your name, your memories, your certainties. A stage set up to make you believe you exist. But if you stop to think, something doesn't quite fit. There are moments when life seems like a cheap trick. Have you ever felt it? That strange feeling when a memory pops up out of nowhere and you wonder if it really happened or if you just saw it in a movie somewhere. When an emotion overwhelms you, sadness, anger, happiness, but minutes later you realize you don't even know where it came from. Viktor Pelevin, one of the most enigmatic writers in contemporary literature, says we live in a world of symbols, not things. What does that mean? It means that everything around you, the city you live in, the clothes you wear, the dreams you have is not real in the sense you imagine. They are just stories that someone created and that you accepted as truth. But who wrote your story? You think it was your choices, but look closely. You like what you like because someone taught you to like it. You fear what you fear because you were conditioned to fear it. Your concept of success, of failure, of right and wrong, all of that was implanted in you before you even learned to question. Every morning, millions of people wake up without realizing they are following a script. They grab their mobile, read the same news, feel the same programmed indignations, buy the same things, and, at night, they convince themselves that they were free. But what would happen if that structure suddenly crumbled? And it does happen. When someone loses everything overnight, a financial collapse, the death of a child, a war that turns a peaceful life into ruins. The truth is revealed. Nothing was solid. The job, the plans, the routine it was, all a fragile bubble. One blink, and it all vanishes. What Pelevin does in his books is show that that bubble never existed in the first place. The problem is not that reality is fragile. The problem is that reality as we know it does not exist. So I ask you, if none of this is real, who are you in truth? Have you ever felt like you were in a movie? Not as the protagonist, but as an unimportant extra, lost in a scene you don't even know how it started. You wake up, put on clothes you didn't really choose, take transportation you hate, work at something that barely makes sense, see news that someone decided for you, and, at the end of the day, feel a fatigue that has no explanation. Deep down, there is a question you don't ask out loud, but that hovers in a corner of your mind. What is the purpose of this? Viktor Pelevin would call it a great theater, a spectacle where each of us plays a role, but never sees the complete script. He writes, "The modern man lives inside a film he did not direct, where the only real option is to change the channel. If everything we see is a movie, who are the directors? The answer is uncomfortable. There is no great villain in a top hat controlling everything, nor a group of men in a dark room deciding every detail of the world. The control is diluted, scattered in the ideas we absorb without realizing it. The media shapes your view of what is right and wrong. The economy defines what you can desire. Technology chooses the thoughts that will occupy your mind. There are no visible chains, but there is an efficient mechanism to keep you in the same place: distraction. Have you ever noticed how everything around you is designed so you never have time to question? Algorithms throw content at you, one after another. Work absorbs your energy. Entertainment fills the gaps of silence. In the end, the truth never arrives because there is never any space to seek it." In Generation P, Pelevin writes about an advertiser who discovers that all politics is manufactured, nothing more than actors playing pre-written speeches. The character realizes there are no leaders, no revolutions, no absolute truths. There are only narratives. And what happens to those who realize this? What happens to those who perceive that reality is just a theater? The same thing that happens to anyone who tries to shout in the middle of a movie. No one listens. The noise of the plot is always louder than the voice of the audience. So I ask again, what is real? And what is just a reflection on the screen? If someone erased all your memories tonight and tomorrow gave you a new name, a new family, a new story, would you still be you, or would you be someone else? The question seems absurd, but there's something unsettling about it. If your identity depends on your story, and your story can be altered, what exactly are you? Viktor Pelevin writes, "Human identity is a palace made of smoke. It is solid only as long as no one blows on it. The problem is that we are always surrounded by wind." Think about your childhood. You were born nameless, without concepts, without certainties. Little by little, they told you who you were. First came the words, son, girl, boy, Brazilian, Catholic, atheist, shy, smart, pretty, dumb, capable, useless. You didn't choose any of those labels, but they stuck to your skin like invisible tattoos. Time passed, and you built a story to justify those words. I'm like this because my family is like this. I think this way because I've always thought this way. I feel this because it's part of me. But what if none of that were true? In The Helmet of Horror, El Casco del Terror, Pelevin creates a device that erases people's minds and implants new memories. The characters live realities that never existed, miss things that never happened, and believe them with all their hearts. Now, look around you. What guarantees that your life isn't a script written by others? Advertising decides what you desire. Culture shapes your values. Language limits what you can think. A Russian and a Japanese person do not perceive the world in the same way because their languages program them differently. But what happens when that programming collapses? There are accounts of people who completely lost their memory and could not recognize themselves in the mirror. There are cases of those who woke up from a coma without remembering their own language. In each of these episodes, an uncomfortable truth was revealed. Without a narrative, there is no self. If your identity can be erased and rewritten, then it was never real. It was just a reflection of words, habits, symbols, a mosaic that can be endlessly dismantled and reassembled. So, if you are not your memories, nor your tastes, nor your certainties, what remains? What causes a person to give up on life? Not a sudden death, but that kind of slow, silent suicide that happens every day. The man who enters the subway at 6 in the morning and stares at the ground as if he were being buried alive. The woman who drowns in social anesthetics, alcohol, TV series, gossip, just to avoid facing her own emptiness. People who no longer expect anything from the days but keep walking because they have forgotten how to fall. What is destroyed first? The pain or the awareness that it is all pointless? Viktor Pelevin writes, "The problem is not that suffering exists. The problem is that it is meaningless. Civilization taught us to expect a trade-off. If I suffer, I need a reward. If I lose something, I want the universe to give it back to me. But what happens when nothing comes back? When loss is just loss? When pain is just a purposeless noise, a scream inside an empty room?" In the novel Snuff, Pelevin describes a world where wars are fabricated to entertain the masses. People watch bombings as they would a reality show. Every explosion, every tragedy, every tear, it's all a spectacle. But for those living inside the war, the horror is real. They suffer, they die, they beg, but no one listens because, in the end, their suffering doesn't matter. Now look at our world. Isn't it the same? Suffering has become a profitable spectacle. News about tragedies circulates on social media for a few hours until being replaced by another disaster. Someone starves to death in a faraway country, and seconds later, a video of a funny cat occupies the same space on the screen. Horror and a joke share the same stage. But what about individual suffering? The pain that doesn't become a headline, that doesn't attract likes, that no one sees. Every person is a universe of small anxieties that no one perceives. And perhaps that is the greatest absurdity of all, that pain is such a massive experience and, at the same time, invisible. What if Pelevin is right? What if we are trapped in an artificial war, where we suffer not because life is cruel, but because we were told it had to be this way? If it's true, then the question is not how to stop suffering, but who taught me to suffer. If a bird is born inside a cage and never sees the sky, will it miss freedom? Freedom can only be desired by those who know they are imprisoned. But what if the cell is invisible? What if the shackles are made of concepts, routines, small distractions carefully designed so that no one notices they are imprisoned? Viktor Pelevin writes, "The most perfect slave is the one who believes himself to be free." Now, think about your life. What does it mean to be free to you? Choosing your profession, your partner, what to watch on streaming? Real freedom is not having options within a closed system. Real freedom would be being able to question the system itself. But who has time for that? Who can stop to ask why things are the way they are when there are bills to pay, series to watch, notifications to respond to? Society's cruelest trick was not creating a system of oppression. It was making sure no one noticed it exists. In Generation P, Pelevin describes a reality where politicians are just avatars of an automated system. They don't actually govern. They only represent useful narratives. The real power is elsewhere, in the financial market, in the media, in the cultural industry that molds desires before people even realize they have them. Do you think you make rational decisions? Your concept of happiness was programmed. Your sense of fulfillment was written by someone who never met you. If you feel insufficient, it's because you need to keep consuming, trying to fill a void that was designed to never be filled. And what happens when someone realizes this? When someone wakes up to the game, two options. Either that person goes mad, or they learn to laugh. Pelevin writes about characters who discover the farce, but instead of fighting, they simply laugh at the absurdity. Because when you realize that reality is a theater, it no longer makes sense to take everything so seriously. But laughter is not escapism. Laughter is an act of revolt. It destroys fear. And fear is the only thing that keeps the system running. So I ask you, if you knew none of this mattered, what would you do differently? Have you ever heard of the self? That voice that talks inside your head, that comments, judges, takes pride, takes offense, creates plans. That voice you call you? Now tell me, where exactly is that self? In the brain? In a specific corner of the mind? In a thought? Neuroscience has an uncomfortable answer. Various studies show that the sense of identity, that idea of a continuous self, is just a side effect of brain function. The brain does not record life as a linear film, but as dispersed fragments that it then links together to create an illusion of continuity. That is, you are not a fixed entity, but a flow of perceptions that is being stitched together in real time. Experimental psychology also reinforces this. The famous Benjamin Libet experiment demonstrated that the brain makes decisions even before the person is conscious of them. Your rational self only perceives the choice after it has already been made. This means that the idea of free will might be just a sophisticated illusion. Viktor Pelevin anticipates this concept in The Life of Insects, La Vida de los Insectos, where characters oscillate between being humans and insects, without ever being sure of their true form. What he suggests is that identity is as fragile as a dream, something that changes according to the environment and circumstances. And physics? In quantum mechanics, there is something called the observer effect. Experiments demonstrate that the mere presence of an observer alters the behavior of subatomic particles. This suggests that objective reality, as we understand it, could depend on the consciousness that perceives it. If science says the self is a temporary construct, that time is an arbitrary sequence, and that matter behaves uncertainly depending on who observes, then what is left? Perhaps Pelevin was right all along. Perhaps reality, as we understand it, is just a collective delirium, a well-told narrative. And if so, there is only one question that truly matters. If none of this is real, why keep playing the game? If you've made it this far, congratulations. Few people do. Most stop halfway, distracted by the whirlwind of stimuli the system throws at us. But you stayed, you thought, you questioned. And now I need to tell you something important. This channel only exists because people like you support this parallel reality. Every video I bring here is an effort against the noise, against the automatic programming that keeps us trapped in the illusion. However, doing this has a cost. The algorithm doesn't like those who question too much. It favors the superficial, the obvious, what keeps people inside the bubble. If you've noticed that this channel is different, you know it's not powered by large corporations or giant sponsors. It grows because people like you make it grow. And that's where the role only you can fill comes in. Becoming a channel member is not just a click, it's a gesture of resistance. It's guaranteeing that this type of content continues to exist. As a member, you get exclusive benefits, early access to videos, private discussions, extra material, but most importantly, you become an active part of this construction. And there's more. The super thanks is a direct way to show that this content was valuable to you. If something in this video made you think differently, pulled you out of autopilot, even if only for a few minutes, consider giving back. Because, in the end, everything you give comes back. But don't feel obligated. Just by watching this far, you've already helped a lot. You've proven that you are different from most. That you are not just existing, but trying to understand your own existence. Now, the final question. Are you going to keep just observing, or are you going to be a part of this?